Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leaders of Inclusive Childcare podcast series, brought to you by CanAssist at the University of Victoria and the Ministry of Education and Childcare of British Columbia. My name is Alicia Garcia, and I am your host for this series. I am recording today's podcast on unceded Lekwungen territory. I live, work, and play on this land as an uninvited settler here, and I want to express sincere gratitude to the Lekwungen and Wasanic peoples who share their wisdom and care for this land today. Now, our topic today is incorporating cultures into our programs as childcare leaders. And our special guest today is Ana Delgado. Ana, before we get into our topic, would you mind sharing a bit about yourself and your work?
Of course, thank you. So I have multiple roles in my life as an educator. My biggest role is as the preschool manager with Immigrant Services Society of British Columbia in Vancouver. I also teach in the ECCE department at Vancouver Community College. I run an ECE group with a couple of friends who also work in the field. And I also sit as a director on the Vancouver Regio Association. So I have multiple roles all tied in to early childhood education and care.
Wow, so you're very busy.
Very busy, yes. But it's just the way I like it. It keeps me up to date with what's happening in the world of working with children and families, and it keeps me passionate and motivated.
Yeah, so in that same vein, what keeps you passionate and what was the purpose for entering this field in the first place?
So I entered this field out of necessity. So I was a young mom by choice, and I had two children with my husband, and our youngest was born with a health condition and needed regular doses of medication given. And we went looking for childcare and we searched, I don't even remember how many daycares we went to. And we did in-home group and looked at all different types of care. And I just really couldn't find anything that met our needs as a family, and more importantly, that met the specific needs of our daughter at that time. And so I made this drastic change in my life. I had been working in hospitality up until that point, and I opened an in-home daycare and stayed home for 5 years with my two girls and six other little people from our community. And I discovered that this is what I should have been doing all along. This was really my calling. And I went to school. I did my basic ECE and followed up with my post-basic shortly after. I've worked in Montessori programs, and I've been here at ISS for just over 15 years.
Okay, so when you finished your in-home family programming, did you immediately go to ISS or was there something in between?
No, I worked, I think it was 2 years working at a Montessori program. I'll be honest, the pay was really good. The practices didn't align with who I was and who I wanted to be in the lives of children and families. And so after 2 years, I left that position and I was unemployed for about, I think it was about 10 months. And I drove everyone at home crazy and I drove myself crazy and quickly discovered that I need to be working. I need to be busy. I have four children of my own, so I was busy at home, but I needed a different kind of busy that it would engage me on a different level. And so I started to look for another position, but I was very adamant that it needed to be with an organization that was working with families in a way that was going to be meaningful and that was going to be just more reflective of my own personal philosophy and my practices. And it was at school in my post-basic program. I met someone who was working here, and she let me know that they were expanding and that they needed a new manager. And I had never heard of the organization up until that point, which is really odd because my family and I came as refugees in the late 70s and we didn't access any of these services. We didn't even know that they existed. So I was really intrigued about who ISS of BC was and what this role meant. And I interviewed and I was fortunate enough to be offered the position and I accepted. And it's been a very fulfilling role. Our team has changed a lot in the last 15 years. And I think where we are now, we're a very well-oiled machine. We're very fortunate that there are four of us and our capacity is 12 in the morning and 12 in the afternoon currently. And this really allows us to work with children with varying needs without having to ever turn anyone away, which is something that's really important to us, is to be very inclusive very welcoming, and to create spaces for all children to attend our program.
I think, yeah, that was my question to you, was how you knew that ISS had those values. So if there was someone who is going searching for a position at a program, how do you know that that program has your values and that you're in alignment with
Mhm.
what that program is doing?
When I initially started in this position, it was a very, very different program. It was not working in a way that met the needs of the children. The team, unfortunately, was not working cohesively or collaboratively. It was very much a job, but I saw the need that these children presented, and not so much when we're talking about special needs. No, the need in the sense for attachment, for relationships. Many of them were newcomer families, refugees who were just brand new. They didn't speak any English. Food was different. Everything was different. And I just really saw so many missed opportunities to be doing more and to be working more effectively with these families and to be meeting the group needs, but also individual needs. And so I made a pact with myself to give this job a real go and see if I could make some change and bring a little bit of my philosophy and practices in. And it wasn't easy. It was really, really hard. And it took about 2 years and staff turnover. We had to hire a completely new team. And in doing so, I was very mindful of who we were onboarding. And I was also very honest with them. We have a very challenging job because our families don't speak English for the most part. Our children present with more behaviors because of that same fact. And also, our families that are coming from refugee camps have a very different lived experience than families that are coming from your community. And so I was very mindful of who we were hiring and how we were building our team, but then also ensuring that we had access to trauma informed care and any type of professional development that we could get to really help us hone our skills, but also build our team so that we had that safety net of learning together and making mistakes together. And also, this work can be really emotionally challenging and it takes a toll. And so you need to have a team where you can discuss the really hard days and also brainstorm what other ways can we support families that go beyond what our duties are. Need very dedicated educators to do that kind of work.
What does that hiring process look like for you guys? Is there a specific question that you ask in the interview process, or are there specific things that you look for on resumes that help you to know, oh, this is someone that we would really like to have in our program?
So we haven't had to hire for a permanent position for a while, but when we have looked for those positions, I tend to be very mindful of looking for applicants who have their post basic training so that I know that they at least have the core understanding of working with very young children and then with children who may require some extra support. I also look for multiple languages. Can you speak more than one language? That is always an asset. And then the type of professional development that they've done. A lot of people put extra trainings on their resume, which is fantastic because it gives me a sense of the type of learner that they are and the opportunities that they're seeking to continue that learning. And then cover letter is always great just to let us know a little bit more about themselves. But it's really in the interview where you get a real sense of who people are. In this day and age with so much AI, throwing a cover letter and a resume together is really easy compared to 10, 15 years ago. And so I think it's in the interview where you get a real essence for who someone is and you can really connect to the description of the job, right? But also just a real essence of who they are as a person, as an educator. And the questions that we've formulated in our interviews speak to situations where children are having a challenging time. There's extreme behaviors, there's language barriers, and how would you go about supporting this child?
And as far as your staff, speaking multiple languages, have there ever been situations where there's not a single person on staff who speaks a language that a family speaks? And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, so that's happened many times. There have been many families who speak languages that are just so rare in the lower mainland that we don't even have anyone in the entire organization who speaks that language. And it's been a lot of gestures. Google Translate doesn't even help because those languages don't even exist on Google Translate. And it's really a lot of facial expressions, gestures, and showing tangible objects when we're talking about certain things and doing our best to make sure that we come to some sort of an understanding. But it is hard. It's a very, very challenging part, especially when you need to have serious conversations.
How do you navigate those serious conversations? Is it mostly using technology or those gestures that you were talking about? Is that typically how those go?
So what we have had to do is if the language is available on Google Translate, we use that, but we're also very cautious because we know
Mm.
that things can be misinterpreted very easily. And also, it's really hard to add feeling to a Google Translate. So, after we've exhausted all possibilities and we can't find anyone to come in and assist us with the translation, then we will do Google Translate. Sometimes we will send the document home in English and pray and hope that there's a family friend or another child that speaks some English that can assist us with that part. But until they develop some sort of a tool that we can use that gives us 100% accurate translation and feeling, we have to get creative.
Thinking about language and representation, I know that we've spoken with a lot of educators and leaders in programs where, it's great to have children's languages that they speak in program around the room and just having different words around the room in different languages. What's the importance of having language represented in a program for the children?
Yes. So our program is not very big. We have a cozy little space and we're very mindful of what we put in it and how much we put in it. So we have chosen to have books in multiple languages and books that really show different cultures, right? So, and moving beyond what we typically see in childcare, right? And our dramatic play area, we have clothes that represents different cultures. We have cooking utensils, teacups, an assortment of things that we try to incorporate so that children can see themselves in the program. And it's the same when we're setting up sensory activities like Play-Doh. We want to make sure that we're not putting out only rolling pins and cookie cutters. No, we're putting out as many utensils as we can that are multicultural and that hopefully children will recognize as something that they have at home and something that they use in their day-to-day life.
Do you have any examples of that, of like specific utensils that are more specific to different cultures?
Yes, we have this beautiful Middle Eastern tea set, and I don't know the name of it. I should. So there's the teacups, and then there's this actual, like, I want to call it a bodum, but that doesn't do it justice. And it's all copper. And when people come in, they ask us, let the children play with this. And we say, yes, but we think more of it that they're working with it. They're using it as part of their exploration of the area that they're using it in, the storytelling, and so it's more than a toy. It is not that at all. It definitely becomes very much a part of their experience in the program.
And when it comes to, finding things like that, do you find that you're leaning a lot on the families to tell you about these things or you're doing research on your own? How does that look like for you?
It's really hard to get that type of information from our families. And we also want to be mindful that we're not coming across as a form of tokenism, right? That it's more about us being very mindful and aware of our community that we have within the morning class and the afternoon class, and then trying our best to have representations of those cultures in the space that we're in. And it's not always possible, right? I mean, it's a small space, as I said. We're trying to not overwhelm the children. But with what we do have available, I think do a very nice job of making sure that we're not just offering Western tools and Western material for children to explore, that it is more multicultural and we're trying our best to incorporate as much as we can.
I appreciate that you mentioned tokenism because I think that can be really important to talk about when we think about cultural representation in our program. We don't want to just kind of put something out there for the sake of saying that we put it out there. We want it to be meaningful and thoughtful. And so, how do you strike that balance between making sure that things are included in your program while also not wanting to appear or come across as tokenistic?
I think the way that we do it is that we just incorporate it like we do every other thing. We're not drawing attention to, oh, wow, like look at this beautiful tea set that we added for this child, right? No, it's just about it's out and it's for everyone to use. And it's the same thing with, the different fabrics that we have or the different clothing that we have in the dress up. It's not for one child in particular. It's part of what everyone explores. Right in the book corner on the bookshelf, it's the same idea, right? Children are free to grab whichever book draws their attention. And it's not so much about trying to force that agenda on the specific child that we were thinking of when we brought that material in. No, it's more about creating that community so that everyone is welcome to enjoy everything in the space, but also with that mindset of wanting there to be representation and have those cultural pieces in there as well.
And I think we've talked to a few leaders as well and ECEs across BC, and they sometimes can find it very difficult to incorporate culture and weave it into everything in the program. I think the first way that people incorporate it is through holidays and cultural celebrations. And so how do you recommend weaving culture throughout the entire day, every day, rather than just on specific days?
A few years ago, we had a really hard look at our snack menu. And we had some really great conversations around what we serve, why we serve it, and how can we do it differently so that it is more inclusive of different communities and cultures. And so we decided to be very brave and move away from traditional foods that are served in childcare. And we started to incorporate more diverse foods, which is not easy, but we're really lucky. We have one educator, Helen, who is fantastic in the kitchen, apart from being an amazing educator and just really open to trying new things and trying new recipes. And then our other coworker, Maria, same thing. So between the two of them, we've added new items based on how brave we're feeling. And the children have responded just so well to it. And we try to rotate what's on our menu. And we're always looking for new recipes and new items that we can add that we think will just give children the opportunity to try something different, but for some children to have something that they might eat at home.
Oh, 100%. Thank you all for joining today for part 1 of incorporating culture as a leader. Keep an eye out for part 2 coming this Friday. And next Wednesday, we are discussing leading community connection with special guest Wendy Kenward. Until then, thank you for your support and take care.